Good?
Great.
Right. So thanks for everybody showing up for the keynote today on the second day of AGENTIC. Glad to see everybody. We've met a lot of you over at the booth. We wanted to bring one of our favorite customers to the stage with us, Toffler Associates. I believe they have a really great story about how they've implemented AI into their business. Real quick, I'm Kevin McGrath, CEO of Meibel. I've been building infrastructure, software, and tooling different platforms for more than 30 years. Prior to this, I was at a startup, Spotteds, that got acquired by NetApp. We were using machine learning and AI to optimize infrastructure in the cloud, both on pricing model and scale. This company is a little bit different. We're focused, again, at that infrastructure software layer, but we're focused on AI. And Dave, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about the story of how Toffler Associates, my firm, was able to take decades of data, information, methodologies that was spread across our SharePoint environments, and really across all of our experts that we have in the business, our foresight and futurist experts, and really take that information and start to move it into a scalable capability that we call SINE. It's something that the firm really wanted to take a really important look at as we started to move towards meeting our customers where our customers were in a future capability. We know as a business, what we do is help with scenario planning, strategic planning, these long-term, really hard problems that customers are asking us to solve for. Where do they need to go? What markets they need to enter into? How do they look at disruption? But every scenario and strategic planning process usually takes months, and they needed to have information at a rapid pace. They needed to be able to account for disruption in a quicker and more meaningful way, not just building a smart document that was going to be stored on their website and for their organization to use as a communications tool, but truly be able to take insights that were resilient strategies and apply them to how they were going to solve the work and deliver to their customers and meet the market where their customers needed to be. And so we took that work that we were doing for our customers and the demand signals that we saw for our customers, not just producing PowerPoint products, but actually truly embedding foresight, mindset, creativity, imagination, and deep human judgment into what our customers are getting from our business. And we try to look at how can we do this as an organization ourselves? How could we actually start to disrupt ourselves to ensure that the capabilities, our future-proof solutions that we offer, our intellectual property, can be done at scale across more and more organizations. And so that's when our business really took this next leap. We started not by understanding how do we embed an AI capability into our work, but we really started by understanding how do we apply and understand the deep human judgment to various problem sets, whether or not it's cybersecurity, supply chain management, workforce transformation. We do a lot across a myriad of different industries and for government and commercial sector. But we know as practitioners that our sort of baseline is in the future, everything's connected. It's our creativity that finds the connection. It finds the disruption. That's how we find the signals from the noise. And so we needed to be able to understand how we apply human judgment in our methodologies. And then we took a step forward and actually built a customer-facing UX, something simple, a minimally viable product. And that journey allowed us to really go from what we were doing in a very labor-intensive manner to be able to explore what our customers wanted from a UX, from an interaction with Toffler Associates. We built a WordPress platform. In that WordPress platform, we started to actually integrate some GPT agents. And we could found that what was really important was the agents talked like Toffler, right? We could prompt it. We could feed it relevant information, but it couldn't think like Toffler. It was producing paragraphs, not foresight. And if we were going to take something to our customers, we were going to need something that could look at judgment, that could look at governance, that could look at security and safety and the data that we're applying, and be able to give us not just a closed environment of data and information, but be able to go outwards to the environment to be able to pull information in a regular and recurring basis. And that's when we met Kevin and Team Meibel to help us go through this transformation.
So when Toffler came to us, they were experiencing a lot of what we hear customers experiencing when they first start with AI. They knew that they needed to disrupt themselves, and they're moving from SME first focus to getting an actual product out in front of customers that can interface with them in real time. And they're using AI to get this done, and they're realizing exactly what Dave said. It's getting most of the way down the road, but it's not getting to the fidelity that they want to open this up to their entire customer base. It's not getting to the point where it really shows the next evolution of scale for their business. And where that comes to bear is there's a lot of things that you need to think about when presenting your data. So I'll get a little bit technical with this explanation, but what people do is they start prompting. And when you start prompting, you're like, okay, I just need a better prompt. I've heard about prompt engineering. I'm going to take that. I'm going to keep iterating on this prompt. And you're like, okay, well, the prompts aren't quite getting me where I need to go. I'll feed it. I'm not feeding it enough data. I'll give it a more corpus of data, right? What you're actually doing is, like we hear about like these large context windows and how you can just keep feeding data into AI, you're actually confusing it. The more data that you give it, you can confuse it on how to get to its answer. At the end of the day, the AI is taking what you've given it and trying to complete it in the best way possible. So how you present that data to AI is extremely important. And that's what we call context optimization, which is the first one on this list. Optimizing for what data you give to AI at the right time is extremely important on the answer that it's going to give you. And this is no matter what you're doing, if you're doing entity classification, strategy planning, summaries, anything that you want AI to do, if you don't prompt it correctly, you're not going to get the answer that you want, or you can unintentionally confuse AI. That comes to execution control. How are you operating AI? How are you understanding how I get my data? You can't just get your data at rest. If you think you can just take all your data at rest and throw it at an LLM and you're magically going to prompt your way out of it, you're always going to have a human sitting right next to the answer every single time, and you're not going to get to that scaling aspect. So how are you storing that data, either vectorized, graph, citation information, different things like that, so when you come to retrieval, you're actually optimizing that output. And then the next two go hand in hand, decision tracking and measurement and evaluation. At Meibel, we believe you can't deploy what you can't measure. So if you're deploying to AI to production and you don't have a way to measure that, that's not an eyeball or a human on the other side saying right or wrong for every single answer, again, you're not going to unlock that scale capability. So you need to understand, is your data being used in the answer? How well is your data being used in the answer? Is it driving the outcomes I want? And do I have a mechanistic way to measure that? Furthermore, it's not about one-shot agents. If you think you're going to build an agent for your organization that's going to answer all the questions, like you keep trying to build this super agent for your organization, that's also another place where you fall into a trap of confused responses and confused LLMs. You need to think about AI more as a workflow. I have specific things that, I have specific agents or I have specific AI that accomplishes a specific task. And then how does that work either with humans in my business, like SMEs, or how does that work with other AI agents? And really narrow the focus of what you want to accomplish. The best thing you can do when adopting AI is have a goal. If your goal is, how can AI help my business? I'm going to fire all my data and ask it a bunch of questions. You're going to go in circles for a long time. But if you have a goal like Toffler did, we need to make strategic foresight reports. There's certain things about this reports that we need real-time data for. We need to judge how well we're doing against that. And you have a measurement capability not only for how well the answer is, but how your business is doing. You'll have a much better path to success. And last but not least, that feedback loop. Having someone in your business, a subject matter expert, in Toffler's case, it's their experts in the foresight industry. In your case, it could be an expert in your industry, giving feedback to the system. AI needs feedback. You need someone who knows what's going on to actually scale this thing. And the point of that is they're not looking at every single output, but they're looking at a percentage of outputs. They're looking at the 2% that they need to look at, not the 98% that's going through the system. So when we sat down with the engineers at Toffler who were building SINE, and we walked through these hurdles, now we got to a point where SINE could actually unlock the scale that Toffler was looking for.
Yeah, and just for that context piece, right, we have decades, over 30 years of company information that sits really everywhere. And coupled with that, we also have our founders' writings. Alvin Toffler has books that he's written in publications for decades, since the 70s. And being able to find what was important in all of that data was such a valuable process for us to go through so that we could really figure out the Toffler knowledge that we want to bring to bear in any of the projects that we're taking on. We needed to be able to also make sure that human in the loop was a design feature in whatever capability we were going to put together for our customers and for our business. So in every single process, our methodology brings to bear a foresight practitioner because they need to be reviewing information with our customers or with the analysts that are going through strategic or operational planning activities. But it also allows us to feed that back in, and where we see something that might look like an anomaly or might look like a blip because it's an episodic change, we really want to provide some context to that change so that we can say, this is episodic, this is a blip, this is what's really the foundational driving force behind why that event is occurring. We also needed to make sure that we could bring in that customer relevant information. We don't want all the customers' data. We need some things that are really important to the problem that they're asking us to do, whether or not it's going through a strategic planning process or it's solving a very specific and finite problem, like the future of cybersecurity for a utility company. We needed to make sure we had the right information and we could safely and securely bring that into SINE so that when we're providing the insights and when the customer's using SINE, we actually have a way to make sure that there's a give and take and the customer has much greater relevance to what their problems are without leading into more assumptions that they're making and more bias about their organization. We need to make sure we also put that Toffler knowledge and the customer context at play together to make sure that we're not missing anything or we're overlooking something. And then finally, the blue sky discovery. This was such an important feature for us. As you're going through planning cycles, right, the longer that planning cycle is, the more information you feel like you have to go get. We have some uncertain information. We have some assumptions we have to go validate. We have to go seek this expert guidance. And that can prolong that planning cycle. And we needed a way to very quickly ingest journals, academic information, most relevant research and development activities that were occurring in academia and in the government. Be able to bring that information into SINE in order to make sure that we're giving a more comprehensive view of the problem that the customer is asking us to solve and that they want to address, but doing it in a fast pace. We had to make sure we're, again, shrinking that planning window so they can go and operate with much more action into the environment with resilient strategies. Again, not just a smart strategy that they can shelf and put on the board. And then finally, that human in the loop. I'm going to come back to that thing because it's just such an important aspect. It starts when we're sitting down with those customers and understanding exactly what their problems are. How do they want to apply SINE? How do they want to apply foresight into their business and planning processes to make sure that when they are done with a planning process or when they want to use SINE on a more consistent basis, we've built in how they can best utilize the specific capabilities and methodologies that Toffler can offer through our SINE platform.
And to get that done, there's a platform underneath SINE, Meibel in this case, but if you're thinking of a similar thing for your business, you're going to have to think of, those 6 kind of hurdles that we talked about before. How they implement themselves in the Meibel platform is under our confidence framework. So our confidence framework outlines everything that the Meibel platform has to offer, measuring the uncertainty at different processes of the AI lifecycle. So I'll touch on a few points of these here, but adaptive data ingest. I'm going to go back to data. It's all about how you feed the right data to the model at the right time. And as you're looking at data, as we're looking at this blue sky analysis, as we're getting feedback from the SMEs, as we're looking at the corpus of Toffler's information that they have in their documents repositories, as they're applying data from their customers, how is that data looked at? Are you finding structure in unstructured data sets? Are you citating things between references and documents correctly? Does it understand that if this, then not this, and different things like that? So on retrieval, when you ask the AI to get you the best answer, it is actually building the best context possible for the LLM. And then when you build that context, can you interpret it? Can you track how well my answer is against the stream of answers that could have happened? What tools and techniques are you using to measure that? And how are you building that into an orchestration? Again, most AI tools out there are not a one-shot. It's not one super agent that's able to answer everything for your organization. With Toffler, for instance, there's a multitude of smaller AI experiences that lead into building a larger product. And this is a product they want to put in front of customers. It might start with a personal engagement, but the customer can now operate on this on its own. The product has to be Toffler, right? That's extremely important. So as this runs in production every day, something has to be there in the background, checking the scores, telling Toffler what's working, what's not working, getting information back to the SMEs when it doesn't look like maybe the confidence score is as high as it should be. They need to be able to have the execution control, and they need to be able to work with this system so the Toffler business itself can scale. And so now with that framework, Toffler was able to kind of take this to the next level with confidence.
Yeah, our SMEs, our futurists, we can work on many different engagements across the board at a much greater scale than we were before. But they're able to also spend more time on the human judgment and understanding the deep fundamentals of why things are occurring in a customer's environment or around our customer's environment. So the creativity, the imagination, that's where our people were able to spend their time, not on the labor-intensive research and really trying to get the information together. It actually also allowed us to really start to bring foresight into how organizations and how our firm continues to go to market. When they're asking us to help us think like a futurist, help us to understand how you do strategy, how you go and find disruption, and how you source signals out of all the noise, we're now able to pass that into our organizations, into our customers' way of operating. And again, right, this labor-intensive, go do a human-based engagement time and time again. We know as a foundation, Alvin Toffler taught us this, from the start and the genesis of this firm, right? In the future, things are connected. It's our creativity that finds the connection. So that means we can move our employees to different engagements and rapidly bring to bear the expertise that they need in order to solve for our customers' problem set. And really, this is all being able to be delivered because SINE is a platform not just that's around an AI solution, an AI tool, but it's built on how we operate. It's built on how we process the work. So it doesn't change what we do for our customers, it changed how we go to market. It allows us to go not just sell a 6-month engagement, but it allows us to open up a new revenue model for our firm, for our customers to be able to access and tap into what we do and how we do it.
Yeah, and I think that's great, like to be able to take a business that has been project-based and maybe time-based on certain activities. You have a recurring revenue model now. You have a product that customers want over and over and over again. It's a new revenue stream. It's a new way to build your business. So by disrupting yourselves, you're disrupting the industry, which is kind of amazing. So to wrap up, I want to thank Dave. It's been a pleasure working with his team. They keep pushing us on a ton of features. They push our technical team, especially with the fidelity of what they need to get to their customers. They push us on making our platform better. If you want to know a little bit more, we do have a breakout session / roundtable in Washington A at 2:30, and love to see you there. We're going to kind of take this use case and we're going to dive deeper into kind of the technical aspects. Our CTO will be in there as well. So if you're a technical person, you want to know how some of the sausage is made, you're more than welcome to come by and ask questions. So Dave, thanks again.
Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, appreciate you guys.